when I was 17 years old, I was on like a school camp thing, and I was on the bus, and I remember I was just feeling my neck. I felt this lump right there. It's like a marble, and I was with my health teacher at the time, who was like a mate of mine as well, Mr. Bass, and I said, man, I got this lump thing. And he was all about, go get checked, go get checked. Like, he drilled that into us all the time. And so, obviously, he said, go get checked. And I was like, yeah, like, thinking nothing of it, but it was kind of interesting. Anyway, after the camp, I got home and told my mum and dad, we'd go get checked. And it was nothing. Like, they just said, I think they ended up saying, this is set when I was 17, so this is like 12 years ago, so maybe a little bit hazy, but basically they said that I had glandular fever, right? I said I had glandular fever, and I felt fine, so it was really weird. I felt 100%. And then they gave me some antibiotics, whatever, and over the next couple of weeks, this little lump turned into more lumps under my arms, in my groin as well, and it was like weird, man. We were all going, what's going on? What are all these lumps? Like, it got to the point where there were like 13 golf ball size looking lumps in my neck. Like, I looked super weird. And anyway, I got one, like a biopsy, so they shoved a needle in one of the lumps in my neck, and that they scraped around, whatever, it came back inconclusive, whatever that means. And all these lumps were getting in the way of my breathing, so I'd fall asleep and I'd snore straight away and wake myself back up, so it was getting in the way of my breathing, getting in the way of my sleeping. And that's why I went to the hospital, because they thought nothing was no big deal, like glandular fever, you'll be sweet. Antibiotics didn't help, more antibiotics didn't help. I go to the hospital and they took one of the lumps out from under my arm. And I'm in the hospital, like, doing push-ups and, like, chin-ups and that. I'm feeling super fine, like, super healthy, super sweet. And I was in there for, like, 5 or so days. All good. No talking, nothing serious, whatever. And then I remember the day I was chilling with my fam and also a good mate of mine, Ken, in the hospital, like, in my room. And then all these doctors and nurses strut into my room at once. I was like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, it looked bad, They all come in. And they were just sort of looking at me, solemn face, and they told me I've got cancer. And that was the first time anyone had ever dropped that word. Like, there was no, like, this could be cancer, we have to look into it. It was never a thing. So, boom, you've got cancer. We don't know what kind it is, but it's aggressive. Go out this weekend, see your mateys, whatever. This is on a Friday. See your mateys, whatever. Monday we start. And we're like, what? Like, shit. So, honestly, I was never worried. One of my first thoughts, right? Because this happened in like the long holidays, the 6-week holidays over Christmas. And I had all this schoolwork to do, but I hadn't done it. I'm like, nah, Mum, I'm not doing it because what if this is serious? So I'm just like, nah, I don't want to waste my holidays doing schoolwork. Obviously, I didn't think it was serious, so I was kind of joking, but using it as an excuse not to do schoolwork. As soon as they told me I had cancer, pretty much my first thought was, I'm so glad I didn't do all those assessment tasks. I wasn't like, oh my God, cancer. I wasn't worried, and I just felt like, all right. So let's do this. Like, let's do what we got to do. And went out that weekend, saw a whole bunch of mates. Like, just everyone's tripping. Just like, what? You got cancer? Like, we didn't know what it was, what kind. Anyway, I get back in on Monday. First thing I had to do was go and do like get sperm frozen. So that was so awkward. So I go in, like, my dad drives me or whatever. So he's in the waiting room. I'm in the room, like, all this porn mags and shit everywhere. And, got it done. And, I was 17, like, it was shit. And then go back to hospital. And I think that was the first time that I cried in years, in like 4 years. I remember I cried a few tears or whatever when one of my very close friends, well, he wasn't a close friend, he was someone who I just looked up to so much, a friend of mine who I just really loved and adored, when he died a few years prior. But until that, I hadn't cried at all. After this day of, the sperm thing and that, I get back to hospital and I shed a few tears. And it was all kind of overwhelming, whatever. Just a few. And then after that, we're talking with the doctors, blah, blah, blah. Mum and Dad were obviously wigging out, and we had this massive issue with the professor there who was just like not good at people skills, and he was just not helping the situation with all of us. We got a new dude, and started chemo straight away. They basically said, if you don't start chemo now, like, you'll be dead in 6 weeks. 6 weeks. And we're like, all right, well, let's do this. And then what after that? Well, I guess the first thing that happened is, like, we started doing the treatment, and they learned it was 2 cancers. One caused the other. I don't know which way it went, but it was acute lymphoblastic leukemia and T-cell lymphoma. Deadly as, and really rare combination, especially rare in someone so young. I think they said it was like 1 in 12 million or something, like pretty rare. Anyway, so I'm in like the adults cancer ward now. I've got my own room. Everyone's got to be super careful coming in, washing their hands and, whatever. We decked my room out with like, just posters and skate stuff, and my room was like the party zone of the hospital. I always had a crew in there, and it was wicked. Thanks to everyone who came and visited me. And when we started the chemo, I didn't know what to expect. They're just like, you're gonna feel super nauseous, you're gonna feel this, you're gonna feel that. I didn't know what it was gonna be about. I didn't know what it really was. And chemotherapy, there's lots of different ways you can take it. Like, sometimes I'd have like a 2-minute, they'd push a syringe of, I don't know what it is, like chemo into me over about 2 minutes. Sometimes it would take 4 days to put enough into me. Sometimes it would be tablets. Sometimes it would be this, that. Sometimes it would be straight into my spine, like a needle into my spine. They're doing bone marrow biopsy. I'll tell you that in a minute. And so anyway, so they're trying all this stuff. Like, they got all these things to do, and each month's a different month. First month I had this drug called vincristine, and it's like this pink slow push one. And I had that with a anti-nausea drug called Maxilon, intravenous Maxilon. So this is the first time I'd ever had chemo, and this is what they give me. And I'm lying there, and they're shoving it in. Oh, because like what happened was, so they wouldn't have to prick me with needles in my skin all the time. They put like this thing called a central line in my chest, which is like, it was like this thing hanging out of my chest that you could stick needles into, and it came up. You could see the line like under my skin, and it goes into like a scar over here. Anyway, so they would just put the things into that, hook everything up to this thing coming out of my chest. This time I had this drug, right, I was so, like, they give me this vincristine, they give me this Maxilon, and I was just so uncomfortable in my body. Like, I'm lying there, I'm agitated as, like, super hot and flustered and just struggling so bad. Oh my God, is this what this is gonna be like? I couldn't handle it. I was so uncomfortable. And then I just like woke up later, so like I kind of like just passed myself out or something, I don't know. And after some trial and error, we realized I wasn't allergic to the vincristine, the chemo drug. I was allergic to the anti-nausea drug, the intravenous Maxilon. So we changed anti-nausea drugs to this stuff called ondansetron. And anyway, so like, the first month, doing the chemo, whatever, and I still felt sweet, I'm in hospital, and, like, I was fine. It was a party joint. Like I said, people come visiting me all the time, and I was all good. I wasn't really worried, and then, like, I started getting worse. I started, like, I wasn't moving around. I wasn't, I was just in bed. I wasn't allowed to go do anything. I was just stuck there, and this timeline's a little hazy, so I'm just going to kind of tell you the stories. I don't even know exactly how they happened, but basically I had 6 months of this to do. I had 6 months of this chemotherapy to endure, like the intense chemo, which they assumed, like, I remember they telling me, we don't expect you. They told me this after, actually. They said to me, we didn't expect you to live through that. So, like, it was intense chemo. So I do the first month, and I'm still alright. I do the second month, and at some point they put me on this real high dose of steroids. I don't know exactly. It was part of the chemo, stimulate my appetite, and I don't know why they gave it to me. I can't remember. I don't know why they gave me half the stuff, but they knew what they were doing. So anyway, this stuff, this drug, this steroid made me so hungry, so hungry. I could not stop eating. I was eating 22 hours a day because also I could not sleep on this stuff. And I actually, in like such a quick amount of time, in record time, I put on about 25 kilos. So fast that my skin ripped on my sides, and there were, there was like blood, because I created these stretch marks so quick. My skin ripped. I lost all my hair. I had this rash over my whole body. I just put on all this weight, these big rips on my skin, and I'd been smashing the chemo. I just felt so shit. And then they repeated in the third month. I don't know if I put that weight on in that short amount of time, but over the months. But anyway, in the third month they repeated the first. And the first month I did actually have a reaction to the vincristine. I woke up one day and I felt like my ankles were kind of sprained, which was weird. On the third month they repeat this drug again. And I remember waking up one day and feeling like I was crippled. My legs were killing me. Like someone had bashed me all night with bats. Had to so I'm in hospital, and these pains in my leg, and every about 30 seconds or so I felt like someone was ripping a knife up my spine, and I'm like screaming in hospital, like moaning and carrying on. I was in so much pain. They gave me 6 shots of morphine before I felt any relief. I was just in so much pain. That was probably the worst pain I've ever been in. And I remember, they didn't really know exactly what it was about. And then the next day I had to do my chemo, and they weigh you before you do it. And I don't know if it was the next day, sorry, soon later. And they weigh you before you do it. And this might be too much information, but oh well. Before I went in, so they weighed me, and then I'm like, I gotta go to the toilet. I go to the toilet. And they ask you every day, have you had a bowel movement? Have you had a bowel movement? I don't know, like, I was 17, man. I was just like, what? Yeah, man, I had one. Like, who knows? Every day is the same here, man. Like, I had no clue about my bowel movements, or I didn't think it was important. So I go to the toilet, right? I'm in there for like an hour, like at least. Like, knock every now and then, you alright? I'm like, yeah, kinda. Anyway, and an hour later I come out, and I was like, oh my god, that was fucked up. And I go, alright, let's do the chemo. I said, you should actually probably weigh me again. And like, no, it won't make any difference. I go, no, seriously, weigh me again. And I was over 3 kilos lighter. Like, I think it was like 3.5 something kilos. Because all those drugs, like, they block you up so much. And so that was probably part of the cause of all that pain I'd been in. Other things that happened, I came out of hospital after the first 6 weeks. I could just go home and chill. Like, I just desperately always wanted to be out of that hospital. It was so depressing being in this cancer ward full of cancer patients, even though like the nurses were super sweet and lovely, and I became good friends with some of them. But the rest of it was just super depressing, and they thought like the best thing to do would be to get me out of there. I leave, I go home, and I suppose this kind of ties into the next story I'm going to tell you. So how am I going to fit this in? So like, I go home, and I'd been thinking the whole time, yeah, when I get out of here, I'm going to go smoke some weed. Like, that'll be so fun. I deserve it. I've been through so much shit. Go home, I've been there for 6 weeks, get a whole crew of mates. I'm like, let's all get super high. And we did. And it was fairly fun. And then next day, I got stoned again, and no one's at home. Like, mum and dad were busy doing something, whatever. And I'm chilling, and then I'm like, I got stoned again, and I was thinking, shit, I feel like I've got a temperature, which is really dangerous when you're a chemo patient. And I'm kind of wigging out, and I checked my temperature, and I had a cranking temperature. I was like, oh my god, this is the worst timing ever. So we, mum and dad came home, whatever, went to the hospital, go in, and next thing you know, I can't breathe. Like, I've got pneumonia. They didn't know exactly what was going on at first, so they're pumping me with all these antibiotics, all these drugs. Like, I'm now struggling. I got a cracking headache, and I can't breathe. Every thought was on getting my breath. I'm on the oxygen mask. My blood oxygen level was meant to be like 98, 99, 100%. It was way down. I can't remember if it was, I think it was 70, 78%. It could have even been lower. I'm not 100%, but I'm real low, man. And I like was feeling it. So, you know, everyone had to be quiet around me. I'm in my hospital room. I got my oxygen mask on, and just 100% focused on breathing. And if I'd cough, I'd lose my train of like my flow of breathing, and I'd freak out that I was about to die. And I was in such a bad position that they thought it would be like, they wanted to take me to ICU, but they thought the transport of taking me down there wasn't worth the risk. I was bad. So that was like probably the most freaky experience of my life. And so they were pumping these drugs into my central line, that thing in my chest, and I wasn't getting any better. Then they thought maybe the infection is in that central line, which it was. And so they ripped that thing out. They put a new one in my arm, so I had this thing hanging out of my arm then, which I hated. And then like I slowly started to get better, but that was wild. So what else happened? Yeah, so I guess throughout this whole time, like, you know, I did the 6 months, whatever, and I mean, you know, during that time, I just, it's hard to describe. I guess I started smoking a fair bit of weed then, because, you know, I'd go home, like, from the hospital, but I wasn't allowed to go out. I wasn't allowed to go see my mates. I didn't have the energy anyway. I didn't even want to. I looked horrible, man. I'd look in the mirror, I'm like, don't even recognize this dude at all. I'd always been fit and healthy my whole life. I was 25 kilos heavier, like that, rash over my whole body, you know, hair all falling out. Like, I was looking bad. I didn't want to be around people. And so and I couldn't sleep a lot, so I just started smoking weed. You know, it's therapeutic, it's good for cancer patients, whatever. But I was just bored and probably depressed. That's when I started smoking weed. And I mean, I smoked weed a little bit before that when I was younger, just a few times or whatever, but I actually ended up getting busted by my mum one time, and she was so pissed, so I just bailed it after that. I'm like, oh, it's not worth ruining my relationship with my mum. Anyway, so the options were to, after all this chemo, like the 6 months of intensive, and like, whoa, you survived, man, like, bravo, we weren't expecting that. I was like, yeah. And then they said, you can either do a bone marrow transplant, which is like, I don't even know how to describe that. I don't really exactly know. Someone has to be like the perfect donor for you to get their bone marrow, so that where the cancer starts, it's not going to start again. I don't know. That is probably not at all what happens. I had an option to do this big like procedure if I could find the right donor, or to do 2 years of maintenance chemo, which is chemotherapy you take like once a week, just pills, you can take them at home. And I opted for that. We tried to get a transplant donor, but we couldn't find one that was a good match. I was just like, look, let's just do the thingo. Just while I'm thinking like some other things that, you know, in the cancer, the ways you give chemo, there was pretty intense like procedures happening as well, where, you know, they were shoving cameras down my throat, or you'd have to curl up in a ball on your side, and they'd have this, like, it's like a nail with a corkscrew handle, and they're shoving this nail into your hip bone to do the bone marrow biopsies. And sometimes I'd be curled up in a ball on my side, and they'd be doing lumbar punctures and putting chemotherapy into my spine, like a needle into the spine. so uncomfortable feeling, like your whole back seizes up when they do that. And the other one is brutal, like they're bashing you with this thing. It's incredible how they do it. Point is, going through all this, sometimes it was once a week, and being a youngster in there, they're trying to make me comfortable, which I was not, and so they would give me the drugs. They give me drugs like pethidine, midazolam, fentanyl, morphine, and I loved it. I was like, yeah, like, oh, hook us up with drugs this time, and I'd fight it. I wouldn't want to go to sleep, so I'd like fight this drug so I could stay awake, so I could, I'd barely ever remember it, but, I just trip out and talk shit and have such a fun time. And, like, the nurses would be coming back in for the rest of the day, checking on me, and I'm like, what did I say? What did we do? And they're like, I already told you 10 times. I'm like, tell me one more time. And they'd always fill me in. I'd just laugh at all the stuff we would saying and I was saying and that. But I think as well, like, this gave me some kind of stronger taste for escape and for drugs. And yeah, because I just really loved it, and I guess it was the only fun I was really having at the time. So yeah, anyway, I opted for the 2 years chemo. I had a little bit of a break. I can't remember how long it was, like a few months maybe, after the 6 months intensive, where I could, had a bit of a break where I could just go and do my thing. I was 17, man, and I was a massive, massive, like, partier before, like, big drinker. So when they told me you're going to be doing this 2 years of chemo, they also said you won't be able to drink the whole time. And looking back now, I'm like, God, that would have been the biggest blessing ever. But for me at the time, I don't know, that's what all my mates were doing. That's what we did to enjoy ourselves, like, we'd been drinking together since we were like 14, we were massive, massive cool drinkers. And so I was like, oh my God, man, what am I gonna do? Like, how am I gonna enjoy myself with my mates? So I was heaps worried about it. Anyway, what I did instead, I decided, well, alright, they said I can't drink, so I'm gonna do drugs. That's leading into my next video. Let me tell you a little bit more about the things with cancer. The attitude I had was always positive. I never thought it would kill me, even in the worst times. I always just had this belief, this isn't the end for me. This isn't the end for me, and I always told other people that too, don't worry about it, like, this is temporary, I'm gonna be sweet, and luckily that was just my default response. I didn't, that wasn't something I'd learned or whatever, that was just like the default way I dealt with it. And I think that helped me a lot, just having a positive attitude about what I was going through, because it's easy to give up. I could have given up numerous times, and I almost did give up a few times, but you just gotta remember that it's not gonna be like that forever. And of course, some people aren't so lucky with cancer like me. I've got a few scars on my body, those stretch marks and that. That's pretty much it, Not a lot of people come out of cancer so unscathed, and so I'm obviously one of the lucky ones, but it's just do everything you can do to create a positive mindset. And this is something I wasn't doing, but eat good foods, man. Eat a whole food plant-based diet. A lot of raw, I think, is really good for cancer patients. I was in my cancer ward eating McDonald's, man. Like, this is what trips me out so hard now. How cancer causing food like that is. People bringing in Maccas to me. Here's a Big Mac. I'm like, yeah, thanks. I'm sitting in the cancer ward, surrounded by dying people, eating a Big Mac, and not a doctor ever said a thing. They don't know. They don't know about nutrition, man. That's not what they're trained in. They're trained in surgeries, medications. Cool, like, it has its part, but I could have probably done myself a lot more favors and suffered a lot less and had a lot less work to do after my cancer with losing all that weight. If I'd have eaten better, a lot better I could have been eating. And anyway, I mean, that's basically the gist of what happened to me when I had cancer. It was intense. I had so much support and love from my friends and family. It was incredible. Like my school, they did a Shave for a Cure day, and they raised like $26,000 or something, which was like the biggest in all of the schools in Australia. And one of my best friends, Christy, she shaved her head like completely with me. All my boys shaved their head one day just before, on that weekend, before I started everything. Just man, like they did a fundraiser for me. They raised like $8,000 for me just to enjoy, just to enjoy with money to enjoy when I got better, which I did enjoy, and I used that to do a massive trip to Canada snowboarding. I just received so much love, and man, that actually really helped a lot too. If you know someone going through this stuff, just send them love and just be there for them. And it was amazing just having such a crew of people always in my room, like in the cancer ward, and all that helps so much. And yeah, I'm so grateful to all those people. I've never actually really expressed my gratitude to those people. This is before Facebook and everything like that. But man, like every single positive message I got, and a lot of them I didn't even write back to because I was not in a headspace. Like I didn't even want to deal with anything in life a lot of the time. Writing back to things was like a massive task, so I'm sorry about that. I hope you can understand. But I appreciated every single one of them, and I'm so grateful. And I'm sure that helped a lot for me to maintain that positive attitude and to feel the love from everyone. Anyway, I knew this was going to be a long video, and there's more I could probably say, but I'll leave it there. For anyone who's battling right now, or someone who's battling, good luck to you, and give yourself the best opportunity you can, which means meditate, eat right, be positive, laugh, man. Like laughter is such good medicine. Just focus on the good and be strong, and it's temporary. You can get through it. So best wishes to you. And if you have any more questions, feel free to ask. I'm an open book. I hope there's something I can help someone with. So that's it. Thanks for watching.